So now I'm sweaty and gross. So that's pretty cool because I'm very slightly colder than the world around me. And as such, moisture in the air that's looking to recondense as it loses energy and becomes more stable and orderly is condensing on my body, leading me to then experience it releasing its heat into me as it continues to cool as I cool it. That's not great. That's not a great experience for my body as I'm now gross and sweaty. Do you know what I mean? Does everybody understand the things that I'm saying? Does that make sense? Gross. I'm so gross. What up, Uther Pendragon? Uther Pendragon. It's Uther Pen. Ah, King Arthur's father. Sorry, I am getting the game open. I also just have to update a thing. Lola, be good. Thank you so much for the 6 months. Thank you. That's huge. That's mighty kind of you. Thank you. Chaos, thank you very much for the 8 months as well. Why am I not getting notifications of these? Oh, because we need to go here. Sorry, y'all. Thank you so much. What's going on, Dut? When the end of PTR, are you going to test a new unique dagger? I did. It's complete trash. It does nothing. Sadly. Like I've tried. I have a video about it that I'll be putting out. Just call you Lola? Can do. Thank you. It's very not good for builds that currently exist. That doesn't mean that it is bad. It just doesn't currently function for any purpose. Which basic you plan on going? Probably Reap. I think Reap is kind of like the only real answer. I need to go put stuff down. When does PTR end? Tomorrow. The major issue with Mortarcrux is it should have been an offhand, is kind of first and foremost. And secondly, from what we've seen, it's not currently empowered. Now, the fact that it exists leads me to believe that whatever the seasonal power is, or whatever the changes to a lot of different uniques are, might lend it some strength. Because it would be weird if they kind of just like threw this out into the void and had no intention of it really doing anything. What up, Shaba? Because typically when they add in a cool new thing, it's because it does something. Or they intend for it to do something. Okie dokie. So now we're here. So now we're here, and I need to get swapped over to Sever. So to do that, I need to put all this gear in the trash, like I always do. This is all my Bone Spear gear. Okay. So now for Sever, we have to ask the question, how are we building Sever? Like, what are our intentions with Sever? And how do we plan to make it work? I think the answer is definitely these 3 items. No question. Maybe Tibalt's? Maybe Tibalt's. 20 DR with 12. And these would be better. What up, Mike? Recently found you as a Necro main since launch. Appreciate your analytics and thoroughness testing. Thanks. I appreciate that, Prowl. Thanks for coming in and hanging out. It's, Mortacrux is in a very, very interesting place where I either expect them to add the Macabre tag to more stuff or have skill ranks affected in some way. I think one of the issues that we're running into is the fact that flat damage values, which scale with your weapon, limit you to always using the biggest, slowest weapon. Or you just are doing piss poor damage. And like that sucks. Like that straight up sucks. Also, what's very interesting is every version. Another thing that's very interesting is we now have minion damage on weapons on the slowest two-hander for the most damage, overpower on the slowest two-hander, damage over time on the slowest two-hander. Crit is on a faster weapon, meaning you just do strictly less damage per cast. And vulnerable is on the fastest weapon, making you do 0 damage, because there's basically no reason to use a wand anymore. Just like there's no reason to use a dagger on the necromancer. Yes, you attack fast. Your damage is also like minus 40% what it could be. The purple, this is now a mythic unique. They no longer are referred to as Ubers, and they're now easier to identify. So, the simulacrums are minions. The damage that is dealt is your item's damage. So just like everything that is triggered off of your minions but isn't your minions doing damage, it doesn't scale with them in any way. No changes on the item, not that we're currently aware of. Not for the Uber uniques. Is Lucky Hit generally not good to chase after? Quite the opposite. Lucky Hit is one of the more powerful things that you can incorporate into a build, and often an avenue of power that is denied to certain builds because of the fact that you can't build into it effectively. I need a new set of rings. So I think I'm wearing this, which means I have to solve for my armor, which is right here, kind of already solved. I need to solve for my gloves. I need to solve for boots, which is also already solved. And then I need a weapon. What weapons do I have? That's a big weapon. So I have a weapon that's almost good enough for right now. I have a weapon. It's good enough. I would want a crit on chance to double cast. I should also try with the sword. I don't need these. I can leave this on. I can leave this on. So now I need rings. What do I have for jewelry? And what would I have put on it? I want attack speed and crit chance. It's a great ring. I feel like I should have sever rings in here. This is a good ring. And I'm going for crit damage. This is also just a great ring. This is also just a phenomenal ring. This is also just a really good ring. I can kind of just toss this one on for right now. So then let's squirrel these ones away. So last page, I just have some rings that I could use if I wanted to. That is damage to CC'd. That's actually not that great, but the attack speed is really nice. Okay. So then these gloves are kind of meh. These gloves are significantly better, so I'll roll these for crit chance. What up, Mark? How are we doing? So then tempering here. Here's the other major problem. Why is there no good shadow temper for sever? And like, why are all of these strictly better than these? I won't worry about it. Big crit damage, great. Or utility. Crowd control duration, probably. Great. Put these bad boys on. I need crit. They nerfed oh, I'm not even going to use Blighted on Sever. That's how bad it is. That's like going to be part of my feedback. Big gloves. Like, I'm not going to use Blighted on shadow builds anymore. Why would I? They don't have 100% uptime. On Blighted does. But, like, for Sever, let's say it has 1 second of downtime and 6 seconds up. So that's 1 out of 7. It's 6 out of 7 effective, right? What is 1 out of 7? 14? 7? 28? 90, so it's 14.7 1 4 2 whatever. So it's 14% ineffective. So you're gaining roughly 85% effectiveness. So 85% effectiveness of 50% is what, 42.5? So it's a 42.5 multiplier. I could just use the Great Feast, so that's a 45% multiplier. Like, it's actually kind of crazy. it's approaching kind of bananas, and I don't like to think about it that much. What if you use Blighted with Decay? But why would I use Blighted? That's the question. I have multipliers that are strictly stronger than Blighted, so why would I use it? Oh shit, this isn't gonna work for Shadow Blight crit. Have I ever tried Bloodless Scream? I have. Sadly, chill applied by dots is incredibly ineffective. And you could just hard CC targets without freezing them. So all in all, it's just pure shit. Like, just very bad. How did server testing go? We are 17 minutes into creating the build, Micah. So you are here for the beginning. Nice. What up, Atticus? Only to realize that it's live. Yeah, we're live, baby. So let's go ahead and put on our aspects. So, I'm thinking, obviously we do, damned, 100% uptime. Strictly better than everything else we could do. Now, the hope is that our damage will be able to perform, which is bold of us to assume. Well, let's figure out crit chance. Where do you get that helmet? The helmet of Lucian. I got mine from a Whisper. Did you see better results from Surge or Lance? I saw better results from Lance. But Surge got pretty decent. Your OCD is kindly requesting that you repair your gear. This is immersion therapy. Oh, I want sacrificial. Here's my thing. I have shit uptime on vulnerable. I'm 34 then. So it ends up being 30, which ends up being... I'm gonna try it out with this to start. Ever tried Hemorrhage build? In the past I have, yeah. It's pretty bad. One of the issues that I have with Hemorrhage is that you need to be standing on top of the monsters for you to pick up the orbs of Hemorrhage. Which kind of puts you into the same position as something like Blood Surge. But Blood Surge has the added benefit that heals you. I guess the orbs heal you. Can't really proactively... Yeah, I guess the base damage on it is so low. That's kind of the problem. It does fortify you very quickly. And now with Wrathil, you actually have a multi for it. That's a cool idea. I think we're gonna mess around with this multi. This, if I had 100% uptime on vulnerable, this would be significantly worse, but I don't think that I do, like in reality. What are my skills? Blood Mist, Bone Storm, Tendrils, Corpse Explosion probably, Sever, Decrep. I could have Auto Curse on my gear, so I could fit Blight if I wanted to. Oh, you shouldn't need the Blood Orb glyph though. Like Hemorrhage automatically fortifies you and has a chance to 100% fortify you. And you have Drain Vitality, and Hemorrhage actually has really good lucky hit chance. I think you're over solving for an issue. I think you could take that out easily and fit another multiplier of your damage on. Want the attack speed to reach cap. You almost certainly aren't actually attacking faster with this 20% if you're already at 180% attack speed though. I would seriously sit down and basically like record yourself over 2 or 3 times for 10 seconds, seeing how many times you attack with and without this. We could fit Bone Prison on. For vulnerable uptime. This would give us 12, a 1.12. It kills standalone DR. Alright. I'm also messing around with going max essence on all these builds too. We'll see. Okay, so I need to lose points. Terror is kind of trash city, honestly. Need to find 2 points. Let's think about my crit chance. Crit chance is 49, 69 with Storm up, 100% here. So with Bone Storm up, I'm at crit cap. If only this was a perfect roll. I could also just go to this for crit cap for right now. What's more powerful? A new... Critting all the time, or... Well, I mean, this is just strictly powerful. Yeah, okay. It does boost crit chance. Yep. I'm doing that math. Work, then sacrifice? The sacrificial glyph? No. Your, like, Memento Mori? Yes. If you have a 100% crit chance and you have 900 crit damage, why no Grandpappy aspect 2 valuable? Grandpappy says double your damage. This weapon says double your damage. So what Grandpappy would afford me is some maximum life. And then I would lose chance for sever projectiles to cast twice. Is there a place to see where stats cap at? A place like in the universe? No, I think you would have to check a couple different resources. Like armor caps at 9230. Resistance is naturally capped at 70%. Oh, no.
It's the boy. Hope you are doing well.
Yo, what up, Doomer? I am doing well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's your boy. I would love to put more essence here. Does several projectiles cap twice also double the 4 additional projectiles from Evan Piercer? It does not. Nope, it only shoots Blake twice. Exploit Glyph doesn't give vulnerable uptime on the Necromancer. It's just worse than other people's exploit. Every other class, it applies vulnerable. For the Necromancer, it gives you a stacking 1.1 multi if you've dealt damage to a vulnerable target. You have to do it 10 times before it's a 10% multiplier, so. Yeah. Just like in every way, shape, and form, the Necromancer is just worse than other classes. Do I think having dodge chance is worth it? I can't evaluate worth it. I personally do not rely on chance to stop damage things because that doesn't have 100% uptime, so I personally don't like it. Also on the Sork, well, rest in peace to the Sork, am I right? But people like dodge. There's no like worth it evaluation I can do for you though. Hi Code, thank you very much for the follow. Okay, so we do that. And obviously, since we're a darkness build, the second board we want to build into is Bone Graft. So, yo, Garm, thank you very much for the cooldown. Appreciate you. You subscribe to a bad content creator. You're a real one.
Off cooldown.
No, not Dead Racer. Gravekeeper. Scent of Death becomes an intelligence board. For control? What other glyphs do I want to use here? No, this goes sacrificial. Oh. Wait, what other control? Then I could also do darkness? I could do a darkness. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Could I? Could I fit a darkness? I don't think I can actually. This one is an efficient board. This one is an efficient board. Yeah, now my armor is solved. I could also help solve armor right here. Okay. Well, blah, 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 blah. A leader. It's 15. And then hulking, I would be a few points short. That would be darkness, I guess. I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would need 5 points. Five points for 10 DR. Which is not nothing. Or I just do this. There is some kind of optimization that can happen. Wow, I have so many points left over. I built so many and I activated so many fucking things. What do you want from me, game? Game, what do you want from me? Worth building into enabling a desecration glyph. I forgot what slot ever create desecration. It's your boots, and you sadly don't stand on top of the desecration effect. So you have to attack and then move, and by the time you've moved, the desecration effect is going away. So I tend to believe that it's not worth your while to build into. 18 points is too many points. I think we can all agree on that. Will bone-based stats you find in Paragon Gear work for Bone Storm, which changes shadow damage? Yep. Bone is a skill tag. Shadow is a damage type. There's no bone type damage. There is bone skill tag damage. So it becomes a darkness bone skill, which now deals shadow damage. It no longer deals physical damage. Remember when this used to say fucking good stats? This saying ultimate damage is just so funny to me. Very funny to me. I sent an 8-board setup to I sent an 8-board setup to Sir K, but I think it was before I was doing this. I kind of want to pick up Bone Graft. That'd be such a wild investment, though. I just don't want to click the refund all button. You know what I mean? But yeah, you could easily fit an 8th glyph on here, which would be darkness. What up, Dominic? What's going on, boo-boo? You gain 30% increased potion healing is like a cool concept. It doesn't do anything, but it's a cool concept. Is it not like I built out of my way into things and I don't have somewhere to like build into? Sure. Okay. Let's look at my character. Res is fine. Okay. Where does one find the new helmet? You can do the new content, or you can do Helltide and Tree of Whispers. It will take you a long time, or you'll get lucky, like me. What up, Hunter? How we doing? Sacrificial? Another multi would be cool. Oh, what's it called? Great Feast. Now let's go see if I can maintain this. Oh, and then what do we put on the boots here? I like auto. I'm gonna play with auto curse. Damage still a double dip with damage over time effects. It won't in season 5, but in season 4, yes. All right, let's see if we could just maintain this. Pretty well. I need resource gen, not resource cost reduction. Yeah, I need resource generation. But let's go take it into a pit. Oh, and that's with Essence Gen on, now that I think about it. Is it just a new activity or anywhere? Okay, so you got the answer. Yeah. Every time you play a server, you want to be alone and sack everything? That's ultimately like the best way of going about it. Walking into season 4, it was like, how do we possibly make Sever good? And I was like, I guess that you also build into mages. That ultimately wasn't true, but it wasn't that far off. This is really good. Like, I mean, like, it's very, very slow, but it's because the stats are bad. Actually, pretty good. This is with great feast on, too. Oh, I didn't even look at, I didn't fix my armor or my max life. Okay. What's the aura? That is my curse aura. I could actually, well, I just don't have the points. It was actually fairly good. I am immediately very impressed with how much better this feels. Now, the major issue is because it is an amulet that completely solves for your damage, and since you don't use Blighted anymore, you just get less damage out of it, but it's at 100% consistency. And it turns out that when you don't have to tie all of your fucking damage to whether or not you've triggered 100 Shadow Blight procs on a skill that doesn't want to trigger Shadow Blight, or you've don't need to wait for Grasping Veins for your crit chance, your build does better. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's lunacy, I say. It's lunacy. Did you get a chance to play around with the new unique dagger? I did. Yeah, it doesn't currently do anything in the game. Doesn't mean it won't do something. It just doesn't currently do anything. Okay. Got it in one. Got it in one, everybody. Let's do a video. Y'all, I sat down for maybe 15 seconds before I put this build together, then just kind of put on the gear that made sense. Went with some kind of interesting options in the Book of the Dead Sacrifice as well as in the Paragon, and I'd like to introduce y'all to a Sever build that doesn't suck. It turns out that if you just like take away all the stuff that made Shadow build strong and completely replace them with generic damage multipliers that you don't need to ramp, Sever is a good build. Now, if you walked out of the patch notes for Season 5 PTR without any of the context of the new additions of Lochran's Amulet as well as the Helm of Lucian, and you did the math like I did for Sever builds, you might have walked away thinking that they were going to lose something like 60% of their total damage. And they absolutely did. The nerfs to the Blighted aspect, as well as just the general reliance of Sever on all of these like weird secondary systems for being able to ramp its damage, most notably Grasping Veins as well, were always something that held the build back. It desperately wanted to just be a Shadow version of Bone Spear, which is a high crit chance, high area of effect, straight line missile damage ability, but needed to ramp up Blighted stacks. It needed to wait on Grasping Veins with your Corpse Tendrils. It needed to do 100 instances of damage before it even gained access to its biggest damage multiplier in Blighted. And basically all of that got nerfed into the ground. And you might think, well then, hey Mac, how'd you make it better? How'd you make it do anything? Well, with the addition again of the unique generic items that are now in the game, they kind of took all of those pain points away. So let's go ahead and look at the build, the Book of the Dead, skill tree, everything. I assume the vast majority of this will change actually walking into Season 5, because there's no way that the majority of these items actually stay in the current power state that they are. But that just means that we're going to have a really good basis by which to then theory craft off of once we inevitably get those patch notes. Use the planner down below if you're somebody who wanted to look at kind of the fallout or the general feedback from the Season 5 PTR to get an idea of what this build looked like. And the one that just kind of cruised its way through that tier 100, no sweat. That was literally a one and done recording. I just went, hey, this build's actually doing pretty good. Let me get some footage. I think we'll be able to do a build guide after. I think I want to go ahead and just start off with the items, because I think that will kind of paint the picture of how everything else makes sense. Most notably, we're completely building around Lochran's Talisman. Lochran's Talisman is just strictly better than Grasping Veins ever was, while making all of our damage consistent because it just applies a flat amount of additional critical strike chance, gives us attack speed, which is a huge overall multiplier of our damage here, gives us a ton of very generic additive crit damage, which oddly enough is kind of hard to stack on a build like this, since none of our Shadow Tempers actually really work for Sever, which is, I'll call it funny, but it's mostly just concerning. But then it adds on a huge multiplier for however much of our maximum essence we're able to maintain. And on the build right now with an essence potion, I have 279 essence, which actually goes up even further once I trigger Bone Storm. And again, we'll get to the Paragon board in a hot second. But that means that we're going to be sitting at 295 maximum essence without like perfect masterworks, with no GAs on the gear really to speak of. And that's giving us a whopping 195% damage multiplier whenever we crit. Yeah, that's a lot. To feed into this same system, we're using the Crown of Lucian. Crown of Lucian says you cast 5 spells that cost essence, and you deal 125% additional damage. That's right, a 2.25 multi on this crown. The maximum resource on it naturally feeds into the Amulet of Lochran that we're using, so that's even more additional maximum essence for a larger multiplier. Gives you maximum life as a survivability stat, and ours is even a min roll on core skills. You can get even more additional ranks to the Sever skill itself, which will go significantly further to boost the damage than what you just saw. And to basically completely negate the addition of this helmet's additional resource cost, because once you get up to 5 stacks, you're actually going to be costing an additional, doing the math here, a 75% resource cost. Is that accurate? 5. I'm sorry. Because once you're up to 5 stacks on this, your resource cost is actually increased by 50%, although it's additive resource cost, which is different than multiplicative reduction of resource cost. It's a little bit weird there. But Starless Skies famously reduces your resource cost by 50%. We have even more resource cost reduction on one of our other rings, and it adds on another 50% multiplier. Add on top of that, the stats on this are actually going to get revamped walking into Season 5, because if you notice, the critical strike damage on this ring is a whopping 20, and oddly enough, you get a lot more additive damage than even on a regular legendary piece of gear nowadays. So this ring is just going to become stronger walking into that season. Then for the rest of what we got to do, we basically just need to further empower these systems, make sure Sever's doing as much damage as possible, and then cap all of our resistances and armor. Oh, that's right, I forgot. I didn't cap my armor for that run. I didn't even come vaguely close to dying at any point, and I kind of just laughed at all of the attacks of the monsters, even when they weren't fully crowd controlled, which was like wildly surprising. I just forgot to swap over this ring to a skull, so I would be capped on this setup. I just forgot to do it, and it was perfectly fine. I don't know, man. Sever just got strong, I guess. For the armor, essence per second is the biggest stat here. Then we add on the armor, and the total armor to be able to reach cap. You can go with maximum life, you can go with intelligence. You'll notice that like my gems are kind of random too. I forgot to redo my gems, but I would have even more maximum life if I took out this topaz, which is definitely what I would end up doing. Heart and bones for the DR. For the gloves, Sever ranks, critical strike chance, and then attack speed. We went with more critical strike damage for the temper, and then crowd control duration. Because Sever is still a little bit of a ramping build, right? You need to get your ramp up on Lucian as well as Starless Skies. There's a little bit of ramp here, as well as being able to apply vulnerable with the skill itself after a certain number of casts. We do want crowd control duration just to hold everything closer together so that we're able to basically apply our damage as long as possible. The Great Feast is an aspect that you probably weren't expecting to see on this build here, but it's a 45% just generic multiplier, even if we don't have minions out, and it's actually increasing our essence loss rate by an additional 7 per second, and we're still able to fully maximize our essence uptime. We have 100% essence the entirety of the fight, even with all of the additional costs from Lucian, so that's actually fairly impressive for the output of this build, considering neither my armor nor my boots currently have a masterwork crit on essence per second, which is what you would want. For the pants, I'm actually going with a legacy version of Tibalt's Will because the roll on this is higher than what my current best in slot version, than what my current season 4 Tibalt's Will were, so that's like hilarious. But another 1.2 multi whenever we come out of Blood Mist. You could also go ahead and put like Metamorphosis down onto your boots to be able to trigger this more often. But the big thing here is that they are pants that only give damage reduction, but also give maximum resource, again, further feeding into the Locrian's Amulet. For the boots, the movement speed, essence per second, maximum life, or intelligence. Here, I would also want crowd control duration, but you can go with a lucky hit chance to be able to apply a hard CC. It's definitely not a bad idea. More movement speed. Then we're going with Cursed Aura. This will automatically apply our version of our curse to any monsters that we come into contact with the secondary benefit of also applying Iron Maiden. So you can actually completely take your curse off of your bar. I personally wouldn't do that because being able to curse a pack of monsters and then sever into them from afar is a huge overall efficiency gain. But what this does is allow you to have better uptime on damage against bosses that you generally want to stand next to and not have to worry about recursing targets while you're dishing out damage after they got pulled in by corpse tendrils. For the weapon, the funny part here is that like this weapon is trash. That's like quite honestly, no greater affixes on it, not maximum rolls across the board, but intelligence, maximum life, and then we would want crit damage here. We would want even more crit damage on the actual weapon temper, and then chance for sever projectiles to hit twice. This is where we're putting Damned. Damned is just strictly better than Blighted now in every way, shape, and form if you're a Darkness build. Damned says once you curse a target, you do 100% shadow damage against them. Blighted says that after you deal 80 instances of shadow damage to a target, gain 100% damage for 6 seconds. So Damned has 100% uptime, Blighted has like an 70 to 80% uptime, and that's why you're going to notice, real quick sneak peek here, we're not using the Blighted aspect. That's right. The historically strongest aspect in the game forever and the strongest aspect in the game for Darkness builds is not going to be run on Darkness builds anymore because you don't have 100% uptime on the Blighted bonus. So Great Feast, as long as you can manage the essence cost, is just strictly better. And Damned is strictly better on a two-hander, even if you would have 100% uptime because you can proactively curse targets as opposed to proactively deal damage 80 times. So that's just also a kind of funny thing to recognize here. On the ring, we're going with Sacrificial. On a Darkness build, Sacrificial is going to be boosting your vulnerable damage multi, which I'm actually not currently using, and we'll talk about that in a hot second, your shadow damage multi, and your crit damage multi. It ends up being something like a 41 or 47% damage increase here. You can also use it to be able to crit cap in case your particular critical strike chance isn't at 100%. It has a lot of flexibility in what it can do. And it's also offering us another very interesting avenue to power from the Book of the Dead. And talking about that Book of the Dead, we're going with Reapers for shadow damage increase here. We're also going with Shadow Mage Sacrifice. Now, the interesting thing about this is that it's going to gain us 30% plus an additional 50. The interesting part here is it's going to gain us 30% plus an additional 60 from Memento Mori. So that is a whopping additional 18. So it's 48% essence cost regeneration, which is going a long way to help maintain this permanent uptime on being able to spam on this setup until we get better stats in our gear. But it's also giving us that same amount of maximum essence. Again, maximum essence normally would not even compare to vulnerable, but since maximum essence works as a multiplier from Lochrans, it is, while not strictly as strong as the vulnerable, the added benefit of the resource management is outperforming what that increase in damage would get us, because we wouldn't be at 100% uptime of being able to spam Sever. And obviously, lastly, we're just going to go ahead and sacrifice Iron Golems for the huge crit multi here. So now that we've explained the gear, I think the skill tree will make more sense in how we wanted to approach it. So no generator here, maxing out the normal things that you would, imperfectly balanced, Hued Flesh for generating corpses, and then Sever, and Sever applies vulnerable. I actually wanted to max out Unliving Energy as well for even more maximum essence, but sadly the build is already too thin on skill points, even though we get to gain some back from some interesting places. Blood Mist, and Blood Mist generates corpses. You notice only 1 point into Corpse Explosion. We don't care about Blighted Corpse Explosion because we don't care about Shadow Blight. It does nothing for our build. We don't really scale its damage in an effective way because we can't add on a multiplier of shadow damage over time because that would do nothing for Sever itself. The base proc rate of it is very low on Sever, and the base damage of it, while buffed, is just kind of like okay. The other interesting part is that Lochran's crit chance very specifically doesn't apply to Shadow Blight. This is a bug which I've reported to the developers, but it's just interesting that that works that way. So we don't have 100% uptime on crit chance for Shadow Blight. So realistically, its damage output on the build is like very subpar. We obviously are going to fill out Fueled by Death to be able to eat corpses for that multi, Death's Embrace for more survivability, more damage, Amplify for more damage, and then Decrepify with Abhorrent Decrepify. While Sever's lucky hit chance is absolutely trash city garbage bin, we have lucky hit chance at home. You do trigger this every once in a while and helps with Bone Storm uptime for builds that are still a little squishy. Maybe their gear isn't good enough, but I never really felt like we were in danger in this tier 100. Obviously at later tiers, that's going to be a different scenario, but I felt pretty fine. And again, we weren't even armor capped. I don't know how I survived. I'll be honest with you. This one's perplexing me. Corpse Tendrils with the ability to apply vulnerable, just the 1 point into Necrotic Carapace. You will over time gain your fortified status, which is basically just acting as a, when you would get hit for the first time, 15% DR, which is not a bad thing. Just 1 point into Reaper's Pursuit, 1 point into Crippling Darkness. I go back and forth on this. I think this would be better suited in Reaper's Pursuit to gain back a little bit of mobility here. Now obviously maxing out Gloom as well as Terror. The other cool part about having at least one lucky hit chance apply freeze is that you're able to very quickly apply terror bonuses without having to wait for your corpse tendrils uptime. So that's one of the reasons why I would generally recommend lucky hit freeze on the majority of darkness builds, just be able to trigger terror's like simultaneous double bonus as fast as possible. Down to the final part. Bone Storm, I currently need the point into Supreme Bone Storm to reach crit cap. My gear isn't good enough. My Lochrans is only at 36%. If Lochrans was perfect and I had very slightly better, like 1 GA on crit chance, I would have 100% crit chance, would not need this point. You can put this back up into mobility somewhere else. Inspiring Leader to hit crit cap, then standalone Memento Mori. And I am using Shadow Blight. Why? Because there's nothing else for us to use. So I might as well gain this little 44% damage proc every once in a while. It's not nothing. It's just not really relevant. That's kind of one of my major issues with the Sever build as it stands right now. It's only a shadow build in name, and it's only because these passives work for it. I'd rather build it as a bone build. It would be strictly better that way, because again, this just does nothing for it. I think that the darkness builds in general need a complete revamp, or perhaps 2 different key passives, one that works with dot, one that works with crit. You know, like the sorceress has 6 key passives, 2 for each type of element that you want to do with different outcomes. It would be cool if the necromancer could get some love as well. I'm going to have the Paragon board set up in the planner. I did an interesting thing here, but I'll go over the idea of how we built into the Paragon board and the things that probably wouldn't be obvious to most people until you take another look at how we've set up the build. But in your starter board, we're going with Amplify, just a 1.1 multi the moment that we crit. Then obviously, because we're a Darkness build, our second board will be Bone Graft. We're going to be putting Essence here for the crit multi after a monster is no longer healthy. Tenacity is the largest amount of maximum life you can get from a single node. And then you'll notice that we built both into Reinvigorate and into Bone Graft. Just the weirdest combinations of things to do on a Shadow Darkness build, but hear me out. Building into Reinvigorate gets me 16, 20, 24, 28 maximum essence. 28 maximum essence that then feeds into Lochrans as additional damage multipliers. A very strong amount of damage to receive from this small input of additional Paragon points. This thing is basically a 1.1 multi just by itself. The second part that we're building into is Bone Graft, the legendary node. This says that as long as your Bone Storm is hitting targets, you're going to gain an 8% damage multiplier, so it's just a 1.08. Not as strong as a glyph, but we actually ran out of glyphs to be able to put into these boards for more damage. I was actually on an 8-board setup before I realized the only other glyph I could put in would be Darkness for DR, and instead I could build up to here. So one, we get the 8% additional damage just for having Bone Storm up, and then we gain 16 more maximum essence, feeding into Lochrans. That one's only representative of like a 4 or 5% damage increase, but this thing together is a 1.08 and a 1.05 put together. That's outperforming any 1.1 glyph you would normally put into your build for the same number of points that you would put in to be able to get those bonuses. This is like, I don't know, this one's interesting. Obviously, I then should have built out of this side for one of my boards, but this was a very end game addition to the board because I had 16 Paragon points left over and nowhere to build to. I would not be surprised if you see this tech making its way onto the vast majority of crit builds that the Necromancer has available to it right now, if Lochrans stays the way that it does moving forward. This is the new, and if you see anybody else doing it, just let them know. They should credit me. I think I came up with this. The last of what we're building over into, obviously Exploit for the vulnerable damage multi, building over into Thick Hide for more maximum life, up into Flesh Eater, we're putting Gravekeeper because we're not actually going to be consuming corpses a whole bunch, so we're able to add up to having at least 6 on the ground fairly quickly. Flesh Eater for the multi, building up into the Witherboard finally for Abyssal, just for the 1.1 for non-physical damage. I do pick up the additive damage node here. It's probably not worth it in the end game, and this is where I could regain some of the points to build out to an 8 glyph board, but at least for right now, it was the best place where I could spend that point. Building up into Sent to Death, more maximum life here, the legendary node, and this is where we're putting Sacrificial for another 1.1, and then lastly, building up into the Hulking Monstrosity board, because this is the most efficient intelligence board that you can build at the end for the least amount of points, for another 1.2 multi whenever we crowd control, whenever we curse, whenever we Grasping Veins, if we stagger a boss. So obviously this isn't doing too much against bosses that we kill without staggering, but in the later game you will eventually be staggering your bosses as well, even though Sever is pretty bad at doing it, but inevitably this will activate there. But don't sleep on using Hulking as your final board with control. It's just the most efficient point for point that you can possibly get onto the vast majority of builds out there. Northy, thank you so much for the raid. I appreciate you, man. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So where does that leave us with Sever? Well, on paper, it's like performing better than both blood builds that I tried out, with I think significantly better gear. It is doing like fairly well. It's not quite Bone Spear. It's never really going to quite be Bone Spear because Bone Spear hits everything multiple times with like 6 projectiles, strictly faster at strictly higher damage numbers. But it feels significantly better than it currently feels in Season 4. I think that even in reality, I probably would want to bump up to a two-handed sword. Now, I know what you're saying, two-handed scythe, better damage. I think the attack speed here is limiting us in a fairly significant way. And I think that in certain circumstances, just gaining that a little additional attack speed, depending on what breakpoint we'll be able to get up to, might overperform it. So I wouldn't be surprised if we go to two-handed sword, most notably because the two-handed scythe is also losing like the only stat that kind of mattered, which was the life on kill, which did help with survivability, but now it has summoning damage. I get it, but also it's like kind of stinks that Sever Necromancer very specifically does not have a two-handed 0.9 attacks per second weapon, meaning it cannot benefit from a valuable additive stat on a weapon base that has the largest base damage. Just another kind of kick in the can for Sever because it's always just going to be like the redheaded stepchild of the Necromancer builds. but it's performing well. I think this did significantly better than I expected it to, and I'm nowhere near optimized. This is nowhere near perfect gear. I'm not even like above 4 masterwork rank on the majority of gear pieces. Even my uber unique isn't. My Lochrans, my Crown of Lucian isn't. There's a significant amount of power to be able to put into this build and a much more efficient Paragon board that we can put onto it. But I'd like to hear from you. Do you think that Sever's going to be in a good place walking into Season 5? Did you have a chance to test it during the PTR? What were your experiences? What did you go with? I'd love to hear from you. As well, if you're brand new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. You don't want to be missing anything, especially as we get closer and closer and closer to the reveal of the new class, the reveal of everything coming in the expansion, the Season 5 itself, being able to hold us over until the expansion launches. I'd love to have you here. Thank you very much for watching this video. I truly hope that it helps, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Yes, we're in video. Do basic skills have place in endgame builds? Nowadays, no, unless you're a basic skill build, which is something that we're going to be exploring today. The dagger doesn't currently empower any builds in the meta, and it does not create a new meta build. The dagger works. It just doesn't do work. Sever build guide. Well, that's just it. We didn't have to test it, Sir. We just put it together, ran it, didn't even armor cap, cruise through this tier 100. No sweat. It's just good. You didn't even miss anything. It was 1 hour. I put it together. I ran it through a single dungeon. It was good. Like, that's it. I wasn't even armor capped because I forgot to armor cap. Did I test chance to double cast Sever? Did I test it? It's on the build. It is functional. It does what it says it does, unless you mean something else by test. What about without Lucian? Without Lucian, it's Trash City. I can show you. Here, I'll put on this. It's actually not going to be Trash City. It's just going to be significantly worse. But everything without Lucian is bad. That's kind of the problem with Lucian. In comparison to Lucian. That means that we can use attack speed. Sure. Crit chance. Okay. Oh, but I don't even use blighted aspect. There's no reason to. Will I try Reap? I will. Do you think the Wither nerf will make dot builds like build and make them trash now? Yes. Mathematically speaking. They now do 30% of their previous damage. What did you replace it with? Great Feast. Do you think the new Bone Boots is meant to trigger with Bone Storm? I'm not sure what that question means. You gain essence with the Bone Boots using Bone Storm. I still don't know what that means. Bone Storm is the ultimate skill that makes a swirling Bone Storm around you. Sure. It looks like a lot of fun. Sever has always been a very fun build, and it's always been held back by the fact that It was a ramping build that did not benefit from ramping, but was forced to do it to be able to do damage. Oh, now the inclusion of all that maximum, well, the maximum essence still is, it's actually a larger multiplier in comparison to what it was previously. Should armor cap and resistances always be achieved? Yes. You cannot have a successful build that does not cap its armor and resistances if you intend to be able to survive damage in a gameplay scenario where the damage could kill you. I guess there's a lot of caveats, but I didn't want people to be like, oh, well, actually, if the damage wouldn't kill you, then it doesn't matter. Which is like, yeah, obviously, that's probably not what we're talking about. Do I think that a minion Shadow Blight build will work? I did it. It's not good, but it's also because of issues with the Shade Mist aspect itself. So it's not even just that it's not fully crit capped, but the fact that it doesn't continue to stack, so you actually don't continue to get returns by adding on more minions. Which I can't tell if that's a bug or not, or if there is just a hard cap of total damage instances that can be applied to a target simultaneously, which we haven't seen in the behavior of other skills. Not sure why you turn into Leonard Nimoy if you don't cap resistances. A Vulcan? You got me. I have no idea what we're talking about. What are the must-have stats for the Necromancer on gear that isn't build specific? There are no Necro-specific stats that you must have on gear if we're not specifying for builds, other than armor resistances. Those are the only required stats. But stats are only required per specific builds. I don't think that that's not true on other classes, but maybe it is. But there are no non-build specific required stats. That's not really how stats work in this game. It was the accent that you did. I did a Leonard Nimoy accent? I don't think I did a Leonard Nimoy accent, but maybe I have a Leonard Nimoy in me. That the temper for Earth size doesn't work with this for curse size. Yeah, it should. Like if I want to spend tempers on that, I should be able to benefit from it. Did I sound like Leonard Nimoy? Flopcast, thank you for the follow. Mr. Stitz, thank you for the follow as well. Kleb, Jalen, Agro PvP, thank you, thank you. Bone Storm increases your essence by 30 with Path of Triangle. The S is the increase. Bone Storm doesn't increase your essence when using Path of Trigul, unless you are reporting a bug to me that I'm unaware of. Is this PTR? This is PTR. Yep. Were you actually triggering the Bone Graft legendary node in your board? and misattributing it to Trag'Oul. And like I can go test this thing, but I have not experienced the phenomena that you are talking about. But that's just it. So you should have been hitting 60 max essence. Like, it shouldn't have stopped at 30. Because there isn't a 30 cap from the boots. The boots are just per bone splinter that hits a target. So over the cast of one bone prison, you can get up to 60 bonus essence. There is no, like, 30 essence cap on the boots. I'm also wondering if you were sacrificing bone mages for essence and resource gen, because that would be exactly 30 essence. But we can go test it. I mean, yeah, it's a very simple test.
I cannot use that.
Yeah, so significantly slower without Lucian. Still not bad. How are you feeling about Season 5 changes as a whole? How am I feeling about the Season 5 changes as a whole? Until we see the changes to unique items, it's still a very incomplete picture. The new content needs to be retuned pretty severely. The reward is just like not worth doing it at all. These items need to be retuned, basically cut in half, bare minimum. They need to completely reimagine the Necromancer, like pretty severely at this point. I think it's just kind of like obvious that it is too many disparate, like non-functioning systems that kind of overlap. I need somebody to come out and say, like, I need a dissertation on why it's okay that the barbarian keeps stifling like generic power in the game. I'm excited to play new content because it's like different enough from what we currently have to like really invigorate me to want to do it and get good at it and make builds for it, because I think that your build needs to be pretty significantly different for it. This is a bug. The thing currently happening in the pits right now, this is a bug. As far as I know. Did you go on a date yesterday? Hold on, I'm getting a spam text and I love responding to them. So I like to see the auto response. Um, I I really think, based off the balance changes made for the Necromancer in particular, the devs really missed the mark, and nothing I see here changes that. It just offshores more of our damage onto our gear, and the core skill mechanics themselves continue to flounder. And I think the class as a whole needs a really strong look at. And if we walk into the expansion and it's not like foundationally changed, I think it will have been a failure. And I hate being that bleak about it, but it's just like true. This point in my skill tree is there because there's nothing else to put it in. That's wild. That is actually wild. Blighted and Shadowblade is now a stepping stone to Great Feast. That's insane. I still think I wouldn't even do it. Like I would solve for Great Feast as fast as possible. Like this is nothing. There is no point to this. It's just you might as well put a point in, and any other point in your skill tree isn't going to perform at the level of Shadowblade. We don't know the coming season's gimmick. And this is not me shitting on you, Atticus. I want to touch on this. So the statement was, we don't even know what the season 5 gimmick is yet, basically. This kind of gets tossed around a lot, where it's like, you don't know what builds are going to be strong because we don't know what the gimmick is. The builds need to be healthy because seasonal isn't the only thing that exists. Eternal exists, and Sever sucks the moon out of the sky. And even if this season, let's say the season mechanic was somehow AI is able to determine what the meta is and doubles the damage of the worst builds and cuts the damage of the best builds in half. That would not change the fact that darkness as a skill type on the Necromancer has no identity that makes any sense at all. And that's interesting. Are you aware that the temper for Bone Splinters fires twice works for the new boots? I'm aware that it looks like it does, but it doesn't actually shoot out more Bone Splinters in total. Bone Splinters will shoot out from the same side multiple times over, making it look like you're getting more, but you will only shoot out a total of 30 Bone Splinters. At least according to my testing and Sirach's testing. I never got to shoot out more. Yes, the Bone Splinters from the boots count as a basic skill. Stacks say otherwise. I would love to see some proof, if you have it. I never got it to shoot out more than the 30. I would also love to be wrong, because that was like the first thing that I tried to test, but I never saw it shoot more than 30. I sat down and watched it. Unless it's shooting out invisible ones, which could happen. Voody was testing it? I'll have to talk to him. What was the thing here? This is not triggering this. Unless it's while you have stacks, it will do it. Maybe that's a thing. Can I mouse over my essence pool? Sure. I'm not going to be able to search somebody else's live stream looking for a thing. So I'm not generating essence. This is working. But this did not generate essence from casting it. Now it will work for Bone Graft, obviously. The only other thing that I can think of, just give you the benefit of the doubt. Nope. Chance to cast twice. Bone Splinters. Let's see. There could be a lot of interesting things happening here. Who's Corbin? Oh, hey. Very interesting. So how is that possible? Cool. We're gonna clip this. We're gonna clip this. So that's one. No. Eight, 9. Hold on. See? Hold on. That's weird. I'm going to count damage instances. Because I was counting splinters before. Which was stupid now that I think about it, but... So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's invisible. We are now at 9. We only saw 8 projectiles. Smitty, you're watching me. You're watching me test it in real time. They could overlap for all intents and purposes. To me, that's the exact same thing as it being an invisible missile. But yes, 1 missile, 1 stack, 2 missile, 2 stack, 3 missile, 3 stack, 4 missile, 4 stack, 5 missile, 5 stack, 6 missile, 6 stack, 7 missile, 7 stack, 8 missile, 9 stacks. Tenth missile. Well, now 9th missile, 10 stacks. This is 10, but we're at 12 stacks. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Gained an extra one. 16. 17, we gained an extra one. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. 30 missiles. It does not, Dennis. No, John. It just shoots splinters out of the sections that are there. It doesn't matter how many sections there are. Minions don't get crit multi from grasping veins. Yes. They also don't get the multi. Yes, exactly. They cannot be considered to have barrier. Interesting. Yeah, so the chance for it to shoot... So the way that chance for it to shoot twice typically works is that one flies out in front of the other one. Here, they're generating simultaneously and overlapping. It's not necessarily a bug, except that it doesn't behave in any other way like it normally does. I call that a bug. Bugs. Chance to cast bone splinters twice on Tragul's bone prison. Overlaps the missiles instead of the normal function of the bonus missile launching ahead of the cast missile. So while you only see 30 bone splinters released, more than that can hit the target. In total, you will see 2 stacks gained, 2 damage instances, but only 1 missile hit the target. That helps with clarity, less projectiles on the screen. No, it just leads to confusing and unintuitive. Like, is that true? Sure. You also wouldn't be able to in-game identify why the functionality of the item is not matching what you expect it to. Does it work with new unique sword? It does. Yep. I already tested it. It's not good. It turns out that like Bone Splinters is not actually a good basic skill for doing damage. It's fine for single target. It's trash for AoE because it doesn't do AoE damage. And the Bone Prison itself doesn't offer you enough AoE damage to make up for it. For a basic skill build to really work, it either needs to carry a huge amount of multipliers or actually do AoE damage, from my perspective. Yes, the Bone Splinters are cast by you. Yep. When did you test it? Thursday? Friday? Max essence from that, theoretically, would be 60 instances, yeah. Which is a lot. Pretty severely overperforms Bone Spirit size temper. Boop. Although Bone Spirit size temper is actually pretty cool, but... Oh. Why? Did you go on a date yesterday? Kissing smiley face. I told them to fuck off, and I put another expletive that I won't say on stream. Then they asked, "Why are you?" Period. Why are you so rude? Why are you so rude? Why are you? Period. Question mark. There we go. What up, Kiwi? Including Pain Gorgers and Shattered Spirit. So the two issue with Pain Gorgers and Shattered Spirit. Pain Gorgers can't crit. And all of the damage multiplication of bone skills tends to be from crit and crit with bone and crit multis. So you're taking the base damage of Bone Splinters without all of the things that increase its crit damage. So that's the first problem with Pain Gorgers for it. The second issue with then Shattered Spirit is that Shattered Spirit consumes all of your essence on Bone Spirit cast. So all of your Bone Splinters, which don't really like hit targets that you want them to hit efficiently, are reading whatever leftover essence you have from Essence on Macabre skill, which is not nothing, but it's not your max essence. So both of the things are very non-synergistic with the things that scale bone damage, which is having max essence when you cast, which is one of the benefits of Bone Splinters as a generic skill. And then one of the funny parts about the sword itself is you now have to solve for the essence issue, which you can, that's not a problem. But in not having 100% uptime on max essence, you are then further reducing the damage of Bone Splinters, which is just like hilarious. Looking at websites without an ad block is like being transported to a parallel dimension. Yeah, a parallel dimension where you support the people who make things for you for free that you get to look at. And instead of that, generate them absolutely no revenue at all so that they can't support their websites, and then you won't have the free thing that you want. It's wild. What were we talking about? You can also just close it. Bone Splinters, Bone Spirit. So we go with Splinters. Oh, this one. Don't need this crit chance, or at least I shouldn't. No, I don't need this crit chance. Has Fist of Fate ever found its way into any build? No. Fist of Fate get worse and worse and worse the more health that monsters have. Because what Fist of Fate says is that you hope to high roll more often than you low roll within a short period of time. Because the average damage increase of Fist of Fate doesn't outperform just putting like a 50% damage multiplier onto a pair of gloves with better stats. So you have to outperform the average, which means that you're looking to gamble for a burst window where you get above the output of a legendary piece of gear. The longer that the fight goes on, the more that you expect to experience the average. Hey, no problem getting stuff done. What's going on, Trev? How you doing, boo-boo? Testing any Necro Thorns builds in the PTR? Probably not. I think that Thorns is, in general, like, pretty not great. But if Crip is listening, I think your build is great. I just don't think my build will be great. Mostly because I'm very disinterested in testing it out. So this is 34 additive damage versus... So right now I have... Oh, is this 100% chance? Do they add together or do they roll separately? If they rolled separately, that would actually be even stronger possible uptime. Excuse me. But I think it just adds together. Then, okay. Say tomorrow. Last day tomorrow is. Kind of mad about more PTR testing. I mean, I literally just have more stuff to test, so, you know, we're out here. I need to update Sever. So this goes to Lucian. This goes to Lochran. This is fine. This goes to... Crit. This goes to... Feast. Resource generation. This goes to a big old two-hander. Damage over time, actually very specifically better, because it's a multi for Shadow Blight. Okay. Interesting. See, other one I want, crit.